On a bitter, freezing night, Jude Brooks, an exhausted, homeless college student barely hanging on to his education, stumbles into a moment that will change everything. Struggling to scrape together tuition money, sleeping wherever he can, Jude suddenly finds an elderly woman collapsed in a dark alley behind an upscale restaurant. Fear tells him to walk away, survival tells him to disappear, but instinct wins. He races for help, even giving up his last $50 just to make a 911 call. He saves her life, then vanishes, believing the story ends there. Until the next morning, when a luxury car pulls up, a sharply dressed man steps out and calls Jude by name, unleashing a twist no one could have imagined. Before we jump back into the story, tell us where you're watching from and subscribe because tomorrow's story is something special. The fluorescent lights inside Lambert Community College's library buzzed angrily like insects that refused to die. Jude Brooks jolted awake, his cheek peeling off the sticky surface of an open chemistry textbook. "Hey, library's closing." A security guard stood a few feet away, arms crossed. His name tag read Dennis, but his expression said he was far too tired to care. Jude shoved his notebook into his backpack, everything he owned stuffed into one torn North Face knockoff, and slung it over his shoulder. The weight pulled him slightly to one side. "Won't happen again," Jude muttered as he headed for the door. Dennis sighed behind him. "That's what you said Tuesday." The November air hit Jude like a slap. Lambert, Pennsylvania, wasn't the town you saw in movies. No charm, no warmth, just cracked sidewalks, gray buildings, and the constant sour smell of the paper mill. 2 towns over, the community college sat on the edge of everything, concrete blocks stacked like someone had designed the place while actively hating students. Jude pulled his gray hoodie tighter. The zipper had broken months ago, so he clutched it shut with one hand as he walked. His sneakers were worse, not visibly destroyed, but the kind with holes that let in every puddle, A couple passed him on the sidewalk. The woman clutched her purse tighter. Her husband subtly steered her away. Jude kept his head down. Eye contact invited suspicion, sometimes confrontation. Being invisible was safer. He cut through the back parking lot and reached his spot, a bench behind the maintenance shed. He sat, letting himself stop moving for the first time all day. His stomach growled. From the outer pocket of his backpack, he pulled out half a granola bar, crushed, wrapper torn, but it was food. He ate it slowly, forcing himself to savor each bite. Tomorrow was Friday, November 18th. The date was burned into his brain. He pulled out his phone, cracked screen, battery at 9%. He reread the email he already knew by heart. "Mr. Brooks, this is your final notice regarding your outstanding balance of $300 for the fall semester. Payment must be received by 8 a.m. Friday, November 18th, or your enrollment will be terminated immediately." $300. That was all that stood between him and losing everything. He closed his eyes. How had it come to this? His father was serving 8 years in Rockview for armed robbery. His mother had gotten out last spring, only to relapse and disappear again. Last he heard, she was using in Allentown. Growing up, Jude had sworn he'd be different. GED at 16, 2 jobs, saved every dollar. When he'd been accepted to Lambert Community College with partial financial aid, he'd cried, actually cried. But plans required money, and money required stability. Stability was something Jude Brooks had never had. He lost his apartment in September when his roommate vanished, lost his dishwashing job in October when the owner's nephew needed work. He slept in the library, then his car until it got repossessed, then locker rooms until security shut that down too. And still, he kept going to class, turning in assignments, showing up, because that student ID in his wallet was his way out. Without it, he was nothing. Jude slipped off his left sneaker and peeled back the insole.
Hidden underneath, wrapped tightly in a plastic sandwich bag, was every dollar he'd managed to scrape together in 3 months. His hands shook as he pulled it out. Washing dishes under the table, plasma donations until he became anemic, returning cans, selling textbooks, selling his winter coat. Every humiliation rolled into one bundle. He counted it again. Exactly $300. His chest tightened. Tomorrow morning, he'd pay the balance. He'd stay enrolled. He'd keep fighting. "I'm not my parents," he whispered. "I'm getting out." He rewrapped the money, stuffed it back into his shoe, laced it tight, and started walking toward the overpass where he usually slept. That's when he cut through the alley behind Giovanni's and saw her. At first, he thought she was trash bags. Then the pile moved. A woman lay slumped against the brick wall beside a dumpster, fur coat, jewelry glittering in the dark. Her purse spilled across the wet pavement. She wasn't moving right. Jude's instinct screamed at him to keep walking, but she gasped, weak, desperate. Jude crouched beside her. She was old, 70, maybe more. Her skin gray, lips blue. One side of her face drooped. Her hand trembled violently. "Ma'am," Jude said, "can you hear me?" She tried to speak. Only garbled sounds came out. Stroke? Heart attack? Jude didn't know, but he knew it was bad. He reached for his phone. No service. Her hand grabbed his wrist. Her eyes darted toward her purse. He dumped it. Lipstick, wallet, keys, phone. Face ID wouldn't unlock. Her grip loosened. "No, stay with me," Jude whispered. He screamed for help. No one came, so Jude made a choice. He ran. He sprinted to a 24-hour convenience store 2 blocks away, bursted inside. The clerk grabbed a bat. "We're closed. I just need to call 911. Get out." "How much?" Jude asked. The clerk stared. $50. Jude peeled off his sneaker, pulled out his future, paid, called 911, and ran back. The ambulance arrived. Jude disappeared. By morning, he was $50 short. His enrollment was over. Or so he thought, because a black sedan pulled up. A man stepped out. Jude Brooks. And everything changed.
Jude's entire body went rigid. No one said his name anymore. Not professors, not employers, not even the system. Hearing it spoken aloud by a stranger in a tailored suit felt like a trap snapping shut. "Who's asking?" Jude said, already calculating escape routes. The man raised both hands slowly. "Easy, I'm not a cop. My name is Mark Donovan. I need to talk to you about last night." Jude's heart slammed against his ribs. His eyes flicked toward the side street, the alley, the bus stop. If he ran now, he might get away. "My mother wants to thank you," Mark said. Jude froze. "Your mother?" "The woman you found behind Giovanni's," Mark continued carefully. "That was my mother, Brenda Donovan." The words didn't land right away. "Is she okay?" Jude blurted. Mark nodded. "She's alive because of you. The doctors said if you'd waited even 10 more minutes, she wouldn't have made it." Relief hit Jude so hard his knees nearly gave out. Then suspicion rushed in just as fast. "Then why are you here?" Jude asked. "Because you ran," Mark said. "The paramedics said someone called it in and disappeared. My mother kept trying to explain, but she couldn't speak clearly. We tracked the call, got your name." Jude swallowed. "So what, you here to accuse me of something?" Mark frowned. "No, God no. We want to thank you properly." Jude laughed once, short and bitter. "Properly? I don't want trouble. I didn't take anything. Her purse was already on the ground." Mark stared at him for a moment, then exhaled sharply. "Jesus, is that what you think this is?" "Isn't it?" Jude shot back. Mark's expression shifted, not anger at Jude, but something closer to shame. "I'll be honest with you," he said quietly. "When I first heard about it, I assumed the worst. I thought whoever found her tried to rob her and panicked." Jude's fists clenched. "I was wrong," Mark said, "and I'm sorry." Mark pulled out his wallet and held out a stack of bills. "This is yours, $500. The 50 you left, plus more. Jude stared. $500 meant tuition, food, a bed. I don't want charity, Jude said. It's not charity, it's payment. You saved my mother's life. Why do you care? Jude snapped. People like you don't even see people like me. Mark didn't argue. He nodded. You're right, I didn't see you, but my mother did. He gestured to the car. She wants to meet you. Every instinct Jude had screamed no, but he followed.
The hospital was cleaner, brighter, and quieter than anywhere Jude had ever been. Everything smelled like antiseptic and money. Room 407 was massive, flowers everywhere, and in the bed sat the woman from the alley. Brenda Donovan's eyes locked onto Jude the second he stepped inside. "Come here," she said. "Let me see you." Her voice was slightly slurred, but sharp, powerful. She studied him. "You're younger than I expected, and starving." She turned to Mark. "Have you fed him?" "Mom, fix it." Mark left. Brenda looked back at Jude. "Why did you stay?" Jude shrugged. "You were dying." "That's not an answer," she said. "Lots of people die." Jude hesitated. It felt wrong to leave. Brenda smiled faintly. "Rare answer." She leaned forward. "I want to offer you a job." "A job?" Jude repeated. "Yes, full-time, room and board. I'll cover your tuition." Jude stared at her. "Why?" "Because I need someone who gives a damn," she said, "and you need someone who won't let you disappear." She extended her hand. "Deal?" Jude looked at her hand, then shook it. That night, Jude slept in a real bed, for the first time in months, without fear.
Jude didn't sleep that night. Not because he was cold, not because he was hungry, not because he was afraid someone would wake him up and tell him to leave. He didn't sleep because the bed was too quiet. The mattress cradled him instead of bruising his bones. The sheets smelled like detergent, not damp concrete. The room was dark in a peaceful way, not the kind of darkness where danger hid in every corner. Jude lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the moment when it would all disappear. Because things like this didn't happen to people like him. By morning, he was still awake. Brenda Donovan wasted no time. At exactly 7 a.m., Jude heard a sharp knock on his door. Not polite, not tentative, commanding. "Up," her voice called through the door. "We don't sleep late in this house unless we're dead or sedated." Jude sat up so fast, his head spun. He glanced at the digital clock on the nightstand, 7:01. He threw on the clean clothes Mark had left for him and opened the door. Brenda sat in a wheelchair in the hallway, dressed impeccably in a silk robe, her silver hair perfectly pinned back. A nurse hovered nearby. "You're late," Brenda said. "It's 7, you're late," she repeated. "Come with me." The nurse shot Jude a sympathetic look as Brenda wheeled herself toward the elevator. Breakfast was served at a table larger than any apartment Jude had ever lived in. Eggs, toast, fruit, bacon, coffee. Jude stared. "Eat," Brenda said, without looking up from her tablet. Thank you," Jude muttered. He ate slowly at first, afraid he might be told to stop, then faster, then realized his hands were shaking. Brenda watched him over the rim of her coffee cup. "When was the last time you ate properly?" she asked. Jude swallowed. "I don't know." She nodded like she'd expected that answer. "That ends now." The first week was overwhelming. Jude learned the house, learned Brenda's routines, learned how sharp her mind still was despite her body betraying her. She made him accompany her everywhere.
Doctor appointments, board calls, meetings with lawyers and executives who clearly didn't know what to make of the skinny kid in worn sneakers standing beside her wheelchair. Some ignored him. Others looked annoyed. Brenda noticed all of it. "This is Jude," she would say calmly. "If you speak to me, you speak to him." Jude didn't know how to respond to that. One afternoon, after a long meeting, Jude finally asked the question that had been eating at him. "Why me?" he said. Brenda stopped wheeling herself and turned to face him. "Because you didn't run," she said. "I did run at the end." "You ran from the police," she said, "not from me." She studied him. "You stayed when it mattered. That tells me more than a resume ever could." Jude nodded, but the doubt didn't leave. Not yet. The doubt came roaring back the first time he stepped onto campus again. Lambert Community College looked the same, but Jude didn't. He walked into the financial aid office wearing clean clothes, standing straighter than before. Mrs. Henderson looked up, already irritated. "Mr. Brooks, you missed your deadline." Brenda rolled in behind him. The room went silent. Mrs. Henderson stood so fast, her chair skidded backward. "Mrs. Donovan—" "Sit," Brenda said. Jude handed over the payment receipt. Tuition paid in full. Mrs. Henderson's hands trembled as she processed it. "Status?" Brenda asked. "Active," Mrs. Henderson said. "Good." As they left, Jude felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Relief. But not everyone was happy. Rumors spread fast. A homeless kid suddenly driving up in a luxury car, wearing new clothes, walking beside a powerful woman. People whispered. Some professors looked at him differently. And then, one afternoon, Jude overheard it. He probably scammed her. She's old, easy target. That kid doesn't belong here. Jude froze in the hallway. Old instincts kicked in. Disappear, shrink, leave. That night, he told Brenda he was quitting. "I don't want to be a problem," he said quietly. Brenda stared at him, then laughed, a sharp, dangerous laugh. "You think they get to decide where you belong?" she said. She leaned forward. "You paid $50 to save my life. You paid 3 months of suffering to stay in school. You belong anywhere you choose to stand." Jude swallowed hard. "Tomorrow," Brenda continued, "you walk back into that campus with your head up. Let them stare. Let them talk." She smiled thinly. "And if they push you, I'll push back harder." That night, Jude slept. Not because life was easy, but because for the first time, he wasn't alone.
Jude didn't want to go back to campus the next morning. That truth sat heavy in his chest as Mark's black sedan rolled through the familiar streets of Lambert. The buildings looked the same, gray, tired, unforgiving, but this time Jude noticed something else. They weren't looking down at him anymore. They were looking at him. Students stared as he stepped out of the car. Some whispered, some pretended not to. A few watched openly, curiosity and judgment tangled together. Jude felt the old instinct rise, shrink, disappear, don't draw attention. Then he remembered Brenda's voice. "You belong anywhere you choose to stand." So he stood. The confrontation came sooner than expected. Halfway through his economics class, the professor cleared his throat. "Before we begin," he said stiffly, "I'd like to address concerns that have been brought to my attention." Jude's stomach dropped. "There are questions regarding academic integrity and outside influence." Every eye turned to Jude. He felt heat crawl up his neck. This was it, the moment everything fell apart. Before Jude could speak, the classroom door opened. Brenda Donovan rolled in, flanked by Mark and the dean. The professor went silent. "Please," Brenda said calmly, "continue. I'd love to hear these concerns." No one spoke.
Brenda turned her gaze to the class. This young man earned his place here, every credit, every grade, long before I ever met him. She looked directly at the professor. If anyone has evidence otherwise, I suggest you present it now. Silence. Good, Brenda said. Then let's not confuse discomfort with dishonesty. She turned to Jude. Walk with me.
News spread fast. Not just that Jude had connections, but why? Someone leaked the story. The alley, the $50, the 911 call. By the end of the week, Jude wasn't invisible anymore. But something strange happened. People stopped whispering. They started listening. A student asked him for help studying. A professor offered a recommendation. A janitor nodded at him in the hallway. Small things, but real. Months passed. Jude moved into his own small apartment near campus. Still modest, but his. He worked for Brenda during the day, studied at night. She pushed him harder than any boss he'd ever had. "You don't get to waste potential," she told him once. "I didn't save you for that." He graduated with honors. When Jude crossed the stage, Brenda stood, leaning on her cane, stubborn as ever, and clapped louder than anyone. Years later, Jude returned to that same alley. It looked smaller than he remembered, cleaner, brighter. He stood there for a long moment, hands in his coat pockets, thinking about how close he'd come to walking away. One choice, $50, a decision that changed everything. The next morning, a new student sat outside the library, tired, hungry, scared. Jude stopped. "You okay?" he asked. The kid shook his head. Jude smiled gently. "Come on, I know a place." Because sometimes the way out is choosing not to walk away.